address the questions. So, starting with the first question. Matt, how would you propose stimulating the economy and creating jobs?
Well, first of all, there's no doubt that in America today and in the state of Ohio and in the 16th district, this ranks as the #1 concern of our residents. And the fact of the matter is, it's not the government's job to create jobs, but it is the government's role to help create a situation where companies and entrepreneurs can create the jobs that you and I can access. I think first and foremost, one of the things that we must take a look at is our corporate tax rate. If you take a look at it right now, here when you include both the state and federal corporate tax rate, you will find that America is #2, the second highest among the industrialized nations, second only to Japan. I believe our combined rate is somewhere around 39.3% or 35.3%, and Japan's is just several percent greater. That's one area that we must address. Now, some people might hear me say that, and their first response would be, the last thing you need to do is give a corporation a break. After all, they've got enough money. Well, the truth of the matter is, we may call it a corporate tax, but what does it amount to? Ultimately, it ends up being a tax on you and I, the consumer, because the corporate tax is obviously just tacked on to the product cost, and when you and I purchase it, we then pay additional amounts. So in many ways, we're paying that tax as well. I also think we have to take a look at reducing our energy costs. I'm sure one of the questions coming up will be about energy policy, but we must lessen our energy costs, in particular here in America, but also here in Northeast Ohio. As a county commissioner, I was a part of our economic development effort over the years as a commissioner. And one of the concerns that you'd often hear from companies was the high cost of doing business here in Northeast Ohio because of our energy costs. So we absolutely, I'll just throw this in now, we absolutely need to rescind cap and trade, because the last thing we need to do is see our energy costs rise here in the coming years if we're serious about creating jobs. And of course, finally, there are government programs on the books, such as the Workforce Investment Act, that do send federal dollars back to the state and local governments to train our workforce. If you've been involved in any of those programs, you'll often find that there are so many regulations attached to those monies that are returning to us from the federal government that they tie the hands of the local officials and the local entrepreneurs who want to use them to retrain or train once again, I guess, their local workforce. So those are just 3 areas where we can focus our efforts in Congress to hopefully stimulate job creation, not just here in the 16th district, but all across the state of Ohio and America.
All right, Matt, thank you. Jim.
Thank you. You know, being a small businessman for almost 28 years, I can tell you that most of the small businessmen have been traveling the district over the last 6 or 7 months. It's not taxes that they're concerned about, because truly, they don't have the capital right now. And the spending that the government is doing is going to drive, there's a fear, there's an environment fear. So most small businesses like myself and many other small businesses are not going to hire anybody today because they're concerned. They're concerned what their health care costs are going to be. They're concerned what their tax rates are going to be. They're concerned how they're ever going to be able to get capital. Capital is increasingly shrinking. Banking is shrinking. What we need to do to get jobs and to get small businessmen like myself creating more jobs, and I've created over 1,500 jobs in my 27 years, you have to have capital. You have to have an environment that makes you feel good about providing the capital and building the business and bringing on more people. I talked to a restaurant owner here earlier. Nobody's hiring right now. They're cutting their employment. They need to get stable. We need to get a government out of our lives. We need to get less taxes. We need to get less regulations. We need to get the government to back away so that small business can breathe. 77% of our jobs are created by small business. I'm proud to say I've been a small businessman for 28 years, and I know how to create a job. If we were making money today, taxes might be an issue, and we need less taxes. But ultimately, the small businessman today is losing money or breaking even. They're just barely getting by. We need to be able to get more capital into the markets and get our small business the environment so that they can bring more business, actually bring more employment to their small business. Thank you.
Thank you. Doyle?
I agree with both of the things that are there, but there's another one that's more critical. We need equivalency between taxes and tariffs, between foreign and domestic production. If a person is forced to buy from China because its cost is so low that the person in America cannot produce it at that price or anywhere near it, we find that all of our business ends up going to China. I'm not in favor of protective tariffs. That would be saying that China couldn't trade in the United States. But if we choose to have it so that the foreign and domestic have the same cost basis, you can then choose on quality, on appearance, on whatever else is done. We've got to have that equivalency.
Paul?
Yes, I find myself agreeing with all three of the people up here on the stage. Let me just give you an answer here that's the truth, that doesn't sound too repetitive. I agree with everything that was said. The basics are cut taxes drastically, end corporate taxes, end the estate tax or the death tax, end government regulations. By the way, concerning regulations, back in the 1990s, I worked for an organization, a lobbying group, that was a conservative group that had the same values of a lot of the Tea Party and 9/12 groups. We fought government regulations. I know from personal experience the strangling, suffocating effect of government regulations on businesses, small, medium, and large. When I get elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, one of the first things on my plate, my agenda includes to get rid of the EPA. Bring it down to the state level. Keep the environmental groups at the state and local level. End the destructive policies of the EPA. Cap and trade has been mentioned a few times tonight. I've read most of the cap and trade bill. Most of the congressmen down there have not read the 1,700 plus pages. This deal, you've heard how bad health care, the Obamacare is. Cap and trade, if it passes, is going to be like cyanide on our American economy. These government regulations, all in the name of a myth or a fraud called global warming, we need to end this. The EPA has already wreaked havoc on our economy. So another thing, and I agree with Mr. Smith on this, something that's never addressed by both of the major political parties, we need to renegotiate or end these trade deals. I predicted or prophesized back in the 90s and 96 that these trade deals like NAFTA would destroy our economy. Now here it is over 12 years later. Look at what on earth has happened to our country. All of our jobs are going to Red China, and I understand.
It's time to finish up.
Okay.
One thing that we probably should have